Before you, you should have a copy of Article 17, which is our regulations pertaining to community unit development. And then you should also have a copy of this quick notes that EPA prepared that gives a quick synopsis of what planned unit developments are and how they can be used. So we're just going to go through this really quick. If you have questions, feel free to shout them out, I guess. It's pretty informal. So what are planned unit developments? Or PUDs, as we refer to them in the biz. PUDs are oftentimes large integrated developments adhering to a development plan, which is established for the PUD during the approval phase, and it usually is located on a single tract or land that is usually subdivided as part of that process. So the development plan is critical here. That is essentially what is creating the zoning district for that PUD. There's no set standard for PUDs. They are supposed to be unique in nature pertaining to each development. They are commonly used to achieve smart growth and sustainability goals. So we're talking about, making sure that open space is accounted for in these developments. A lot of times you'll see them connected to cluster developments where houses are closer together in order to be able to keep more open space and park-like land available to the public or to the residents of that development for their use. Other times it's used to save or preserve certain physical features of the property, like say there is a nice stream that's running through, and they want to preserve it. However, in doing so, they cannot meet conventional zoning standards. So they would apply for a PUD, design their development around it, and it would go through, obviously, you guys and the Board of County Commissioners for approval. PUDs are also very common in regards to residential being a mixed-use type of development. So you're not just having residential development, so single-family houses everywhere. Most PUDs you'll see now are commercial and residential in nature. So there's going to be some area designated for commercial development and some area designated for residential development. And a lot of times you'll also see different densities within that one single development. So a lot of you'll see around the commercial area, you might have multifamily, so apartment complexes and a higher density, and it can grade into single family at a lower density rate. So you'll commonly see that. As I said, many PUDs are usually residential clustering to reduce the developable area of the development, which allows for the preservation of open space and physical features, but they can also be mixed use. For commercial and industrial PUDs, do not have to have a residential development for it to be a PUD. You can have commercial developments and industrial developments that also fall under the PUD category. Again, you're usually trying to create a situation where the development can't fit the conventional zoning standards for that district, but it's still trying to achieve the same effect that conventional zoning is hoping to get at. However, in a commercial and industrial developments, usually it's some sort of district that they're creating, not just like one big box store going in to the site. You're talking about, sorry, my brain is lost. John might know a few in the area that he can reference. I turned you off.
Yeah, there are a number of mixed-use type developments in the metro area, and this is a traditional tool to accomplish that. A lot of outlying parcels in conjunction with big box stores put together a development plan. Like she said, the development plan is the driving factor in approval of these. So any building permits that come post-approval have to be in strict conformance with that development plan. Any waiving of that development plan or going outside the requirements of the development plan requires it to go back through the process again for reapproval. So it's a vehicle to have creative development on economic areas of your particular community that may not be able to adhere to the standard zoning.
So next question is, what is the process? To create a PUD, they're going through the rezoning process. So a developer would apply to rezone their property to a PUD zoning district. However, where PUDs differ, in addition to that rezoning application, they're also submitting design standards for the proposed development. So what is your building height? What are your setbacks? What are your lot restrictions, density, utility infrastructure, design components, like how are the buildings going to be built, what materials you're going to use, so commonly see with PUDs. And then they're also including a site plan or commonly the preliminary plat showing you how that whole district is going to be outlaid. So a little bit different from traditional rezoning. You'll also have those components you're reviewing as part of the request. And as mentioned, the design standards are also a critical component. So when you receive one of these requests, we always recommend that you're going through that. Usually there is a reason why their requirements would differ from the zoning district standards. It may be because they're trying to reduce setbacks for whatever reason, or they're trying to increase densities. Another thing I think is always critical in reviewing this is utility infrastructure, making sure that the proposed utility is going to match the proposed densities that they want to achieve. All right. So once we get everything wrapped up and is a complete application, a public hearing is held by the Planning Commission, where you're going to review all those things. And your specific job is to look at it in context to Article 17 of our zoning and subdivision regulations. Do you think it meets the standards that have been outlined in that article or not? You can also use the golden factors like you do in other rezonings, but in addition to usually what we're looking at, like does it blend in with the neighborhood, you're going to also look at does it actually meet the goals of our zoning regulations. So that's another step that you guys have to look at. The PC can recommend approval. You can also request that they modify their submittal, and you can also recommend that they deny their to the Board of County Commissioners. And then, of course, like normal, the Board of County Commissioners will review it in the same manner that they do rezonings, with all the extra caveats that you guys will get it as well. If the PUD is approved, the applicant will need to finalize their subdivision for the PUD by filing a final plat in most cases. If they are submitting their preliminary plat concurrently with their rezoning application, some people choose to wait, but a lot of times you'll see them submit it concurrently. So then they'll need to submit their final plat and then record it with the Register of Deeds before improvements on the development can happen. So that's a quick, brief synopsis of the process. Do you guys have any questions? Because that's all I've written.
Just one. When they apply for this PUD, do they have to bring in a site plan, the driveway plan, the setbacks, where the commercial's going, where the multifamily, and where the housing's going? Because that's not how it works on rezoning.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So they're going to give us all that information drawn out on a site plan all at once, and we're going to see the driveways, the commercial up frontage, everything right then.
A development plan has a considerably higher amount of detail than a standard site plan. You quite possibly are going to see elevations on all four sides of the building. You're going to see plantings. You're going to see all the components of transportation, pedestrian access elements.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a number of different things that are likely going to be included in that development plan because, again, the development plan is the driver by which they have to go through to get their permitting at the end of the day. So, yes, the level of detail is substantially higher than you would normally see in the site plan.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. Marcus, quick question. Was that a PUD for that North DeSoto Road area over there, where that commercial area is at? Eisenhower, North DeSoto?
I don't know. I don't know if that is, I don't think that is a PUD. I mean, I don't think that was a PUD. I don't think that was a site for, if you're talking that intersection there across the street from the.
Literally the southeast corner going back towards the DeVita complex.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know. I'll have to look into that. I will. Because that is property that is still.
Well, I've seen a site plan for that there for all the commercial stuff and residential, what's supposed to go into that.
That's
location.
right.
That's why I was wondering.
Yes, absolutely.
Just so I'm clear, are we talking about the southeast corner of DeSoto and Eisenhower?
Yeah.
Yeah, that, if I recall correctly, there were a number of development plans on that particular site to include public improvements there. that included pedestrian walkways and included all the use elements as well as elevations on potential buildings. Now, it's been a minute since I've seen that, and obviously I'm not
I was
part
going
of
to say, I
that.
haven't seen anything in the last 3 years.
So likely, there will be changes to that procedure, which would again make them go back through the process. But if I remember correctly, yes, there were preliminary final development plans there, but we could certainly find that out.
Now, this is in the event of a developer or in the event of, right, I mean, that's what we're talking about. In this case, those expired or, I mean, do they expire?
They do not typically.
Okay.
So if, again, there are some development right elements there, and they vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but if they do public improvements on the site, you lock in development rights. And if I remember correctly, and again, it's been probably 10 years since I've seen
Okay.
any of those, that locks it in and makes it permanent, which is why you file it with the Register of Deeds. Doesn't necessarily have to be the plan itself, but it has to be a statement that there is a plan on file for this particular legal description.
Okay. Okay. All right.
You will also likely see building material boards. You have a building out there, you see an elevation on it. Staff can request that the actual materials be placed on a board to be reviewed by the Planning Commission and County Commission. As part of the approval process, then it mandates those materials be used on the site.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
That's good.
You done?
Yeah.
Anything else to add?
add?
Is that going to be something we're going to see next month, or is that coming up in the future?
I think the plan is at this point next month, but of course we're still waiting on a few things to come in. You guys will see it on the agenda.
We'll see it if you see it.
So just one parting statement on PUDs. PUDs can encompass a lot of different things. So the level of detail that we're talking about is traditionally accomplished through a large retailer. You have a large retail site and you have additional residential components that are in, you're going to see that level of detail. But you may not see that level of detail on a small residential site with, say, 5 or 6 homes. Again, the spirit and intent of the regulation is a key component when approving a PUD, and being able to assess the site that you're reviewing in front of you and determining reasonable criteria for that approval. That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you. See you next month.
Okay.